What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel, and most importantly, please make sure that you're following me on Telegram at TD Media Group to help circumvent social media censorship and shadow banning. And with the introduction out of the way, let's get into today's news. And today, we are headed to, for the first time of all places, Hawaii. Yes, you heard me correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, we are headed to Hawaii because mass deportation has hit that island. I know you can't believe it, neither can I. And as the headline reads here, ICE arrests expose Hawaii's first suspected link to Venezuelan gang. Okay, illegal immigration has hit Hawaii as well as Tren de Aragua. Wow. Let's unpack this article here. I have a lot more for you after this as well. But let's start at Hawaii. And I'm letting you guys know now ahead of time. Please forgive me ahead of time. A lot of these little city names in Hawaii and certain names of people, I'm going to butcher them. Forgive me. My apologies, but it is what it is. Okay. So let's get into this. As the article reads, let me zoom in a little bit more for you guys. It states this: federal agents arrested 44 people during raids Wednesday on Kauai, with officials saying two are suspected associates of Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang known for drugs and human trafficking. Multiple federal agencies executed 6 search warrants at residences and one business. The homes were in Kappa, Kalahoi, and a business in Lihu. Agencies involved included Homeland Security, the FBI, the Coast Guard, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Internal Revenue Services, the IRS. U.S. federal agencies call Tren de Aragua a transnational criminal network. Since early September, the U.S. has carried out lethal airstrikes on small boats in the Eastern Pacific and Caribbean, which U.S. officials say were drug trafficking operations linked to narco terrorist networks, including Venezuela's Tren de Aragua. First reported connection to Hawaii. Let's get into this here. And we have a direct quote from FBI agent Tom Simon, who says, "It's the first time we've heard of that name associated with Hawaii. And we should all be watching closely to see if the government presents any proof of this claim in open court." Once again, said retired FBI agent Tom Simon. Kauai County Council member Fern Holland lives across from one of the raided Kapai homes in Kappa, where she saw more than a dozen people arrested. The arrestees worked for a cleaning company that services the hospitality industry. "I knew it was transient working folks that were coming and going. I would sometimes see the buses picking them up from work, but I never experienced any negative interactions with them," Holland said. Holland said the agents during the raid wore HSI shirts and were professional, though the raid was loud and unnerving, as I would assume all raids are, right? Now, there are some mixed community reactions, and we'll get into this right here. On one hand, yes, go get the criminals. We don't want you here. We want to be safe on our island, said Margie Merriman of Kauai Indivisible, a pro democracy nonprofit. She said reactions have been mixed. Another quote here from Merriman: she said, "We have people here who possibly are undocumented, but they are doing the work a lot of people don't want to do. That's what I want to find out. What's really going on? Were these people being trafficked?" Merriman said. Now, retired FBI agent Todd Simon will go on to say, "A raid that nets 40 plus detainees on a small island tells you ICE had solid intelligence about immigration violation. And this wasn't just a random sweep," Simon said. And I would have to 100% agree with Simon, right? You know, when you're talking about Hawaii, this is a state that you never hear anything about in terms of just negative press, just anything negative. At least we don't on the mainland here, where the 49 states are connected. We don't hear anything negative about Hawaii here on the mainlands, you can say. Obviously, crime does occur in Hawaii, but for us to hear about it here, you know it's something bad that's going on over there. So I say that to say this isn't just some random sweep, right? This isn't just something that willy-nilly just occurred. If a ICE raid occurred in Hawaii where 40 people were snatched up, you know, like Simon said, they have the evidence that they need to prosecute these folks in court. They didn't fly out to Hawaii and snatch all these people up for nothing. Okay. So I'm very confident that the intelligence that they have concerning this immigration raid here, this the sweep that they did, is solid. I'm very confident in that. Now, going back to the Kauai County Council member, Fern Holland, she stated here in closing, as we bring this article to a close, for me, thinking that there could be gang members living across the street is very concerning. And I would be very concerned, especially once again, you're talking about Hawaii, right? I'm not saying crime doesn't happen. We all know crime happens. I'm pretty sure there's some documentary that you can find on YouTube about gangs of Hawaii. I'm pretty sure they exist more or less to some degree. But when you're talking about international gangs like this, gangs that were unheard of prior to Biden's migrant crisis, once it comes to your front door, and especially of all places like Hawaii, that's when you know that this is a very serious issue concerning Tren de Aragua, because it's not just Hawaii that's dealing with this too, on top of the mainlands here in the United States. These guys have also spread out to Spain. Yes, they're in Spain now as well. So let's take a trip over to Spain and unpack what's going on over there with Tren de Aragua. Okay, now look at this here. Spanish police arrested 13 suspected members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua across 5 cities, seized a stash of illegal drugs, and dismantled 2 drug laboratories, authorities said Friday. The arrest followed an investigation Spanish police opened last year after the brother of Nino Guerrero, the leader of the Tren de Aragua gang, was arrested in Barcelona under an international arrest warrant issued by Venezuelan authorities, police said. This was Spain's first operation meant to dismantle a suspect cell of the Venezuelan prison gang, police said in a statement. Ladies and gentlemen, what Biden unleashed onto the country by way of the migrant crisis has become a cancer that is spreading around the world. And yes, I am blaming Biden for this, because you didn't hear about the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua up until the migrant crisis. And look at this paragraph here and how it reads to prove my point as far as I'm concerned. This paragraph reads: the Tren de Aragua gang originated in Venezuela more than a decade ago at an infamously lawless prison with hardened criminals in the central state of Aragua. The gang has expanded, I repeat, the gang has expanded in recent years as more than 7.7 million Venezuelans fled economic turmoil and migrated to other Latin American countries, the US and Spain. Well, why were they allowed to expand to which 7.7 million Venezuelans fled economic turmoil? When you flee, you have to have somewhere to go. And where did they all go? I rest my case. They all came here. When 7.7 million people are fleeing, they have to go somewhere. Where did they go? The majority of them came here because the Biden administration, as well with the Democrats as a whole, had an open door policy: come one, come all. And for 4 years, Tren de Aragua was able to expand and grow unchecked. You didn't hear anything about TDA members getting arrested and getting thrown in jail. As far as the feds are concerned, on a local level, you started hearing about Tren de Aragua because local PDs across the country were putting the pieces together and realizing, wait a minute, we have a new issue in our city, in our respective cities, by this gang that's new called Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan prison gang that's now here in America. Well, how did they get to America? Because you had Democrats that opened the border up and allowed them in. And on a federal level, they were not going after them at all. At all. I don't know of any stories throughout the 4 years that Biden was in office that you heard ICE, the FBI, CIA, DHS, whoever, ATF going after Tren de Aragua. It's not up until now when the Trump administration is in office that you see there's an aggressive effort to get rid of Tren de Aragua and to eradicate them. But for 4 long years, they were able to grow and expand unchecked. And now they've taken root to not just Hawaii, but they have gone internationally over to Spain. This is the work and the doing of Democrats. Tren de Aragua is a cancer that is now expanding worldwide. Once again, up until the migrant crisis, you never even heard anything about Venezuela. The last time you heard Venezuela in the news in any real capacity was back when Hugo Chavez was president of Venezuela. You're talking about back in 2007, 8, 9, 10. We're talking about 15 plus years ago was the last time you ever even heard anything about Venezuela, let alone Venezuelans in the United States. Well, now this prison gang is spreading across the world thanks to the Democrat Party, right? But luckily, once again, Kamala lost, Trump won, and we have a serious administration that's looking to root all of these criminals and remove them from the country. And what I want to do next concerning rooting these criminals and getting them out the country, I want to take a trip, I believe it's over to Houston now. So we've gone from Hawaii to Spain, now to Houston, Texas. And I want to end this video here in Houston because sometime last month, I believe it was within a 10-day period, ICE arrested 1,500 illegal criminal aliens in Houston in a 10-day period. Let's get into this clip next as we bring this video to a close.
I know ICE has said it's arrested more than 1,500 illegal aliens in the Houston area, and the ICE field director there says the 10-day operation took the worst of the worst off the streets. So that is progress. Criminals who gave residents, quote, the nightmares and PTSD that come with being a victim of violent crime. That's a quote. Among those arrested, child predators with prior convictions for violence and sexual offenses. And some of them had been previously deported. How do you even speak to the big job that you have to do? And you are doing it, but there's so much of it at this point. Are you finding more, or is this what you anticipated?
You know, we knew that there were so many criminal illegal aliens out there. We knew we were going to have a big task ahead of us. But really, honestly, Secretary Noem has given us all the resources that we need. Our federal partners are stepping up. Yeah, we're going to complete the president's mission. You know, one thing, Harris, you talked about those ones we arrested. There was one gentleman in there that was wanted for murder in his home country and was convicted of impregnating his own sister here in the United States. So,
okay, wow. We could probably end it here. You get the gist of it. What did he say again? Let's rewind. I said we could probably end it here, but let's hear it again. One more time. This is the kind of people that are running around here in this country that Biden and the Democrats allowed in, and they've just been allowed to live here unchecked. And if Trump didn't win, they would just be here roaming the streets, terrorizing people, including their own family members. He impregnated his own sister. Jesus.
we knew we were going to have a big task ahead of us. But really, honestly, Secretary Noem has given us all the resources that we need. Our federal partners are stepping up. Yeah, we're going to complete the president's mission. You know, one thing, Harris, you talked about those ones we arrested. There was one gentleman in there that was wanted for murder in his home country and was convicted of impregnating his own sister here in the United States. So, you know, law enforcement, like in Texas, the Texas government, they want to help us. They helped us during this 10-day operation. And look, 10 days, we got over 1,500 criminal aliens off the street. So when we do have elected officials or this violent rhetoric that says we're not out arresting the worst of the worst, I tell them to look at Texas. Look at what True Partnership did. We got the worst of the worst off the street with the help of state, local, and other federal partners.
And that's so true. Think about this for a moment. I believe I'm losing track of time and how long Operation Midway Blitz has been going on in Chicago. I mean, is it you guys can help me in the comment section, maybe about a month and a half? Has it been about 6 weeks, something of that nature? I want to say 4 weeks in, you know, the news and, you know, headlines came out that 1,000, illegal immigrants have been arrested since Operation Midway Blitz has gone underway, right? 1,000 plus, we'll say 1,000 plus, and that was a big deal. But when you have the local PD working alongside with ICE, you see the difference. So you're talking about 1,000 in a month in Chicago versus 1,500 in 10 days in the Houston area. 1,000 in 4 weeks versus 1,500 in 10 days. These blue sanctuary city mayors and governors are doing the people such a disservice by blocking ICE from doing their jobs. And how they're blocking them is by not giving them the necessary intel and the proper collaboration between federal agencies and local law enforcement that's needed in order to truly round up the worst of the worst, like we see happening in Houston. And this is why it's so critical that we have more ICE agents on the streets. And fortunately, ICE is going to see a 10,000 personnel boost. That's why it's so critical, because when you have local law enforcement in places like, Chicago and New York that aren't allowed to assist ICE, it's not that they don't want to, they're not allowed to. Well, now we need more ICE agents on the streets. And that's what's going to happen. And the wailing and gnashing of teeth will be great. And I will be here for it, cheering it on. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. Share this video on your social media platforms. And please do not forget to follow me on Telegram at TD Media Group. It is extremely important that you do that. Please follow me on Telegram, TD Media Group. The link to my Telegrams in the description box below and pinned in the comment section as well. Thank you all for your time. Until the next video, peace and have a great afternoon.